Hi guys, Whisky Geek here, in my happy place doing another whisky review, and today is the Game of Thrones House Lannister Lagavulin 9-year-old. Now that's a mouthful. Although I've not really kept up to date with Game of Thrones world, I'm really keen on what Diageo and HBO have done getting together to bring these whiskies to market. And I'm hoping that means there'll be a new wave of whisky appreciators coming and enjoying the world's best alcoholic beverages. So I'm going to quickly run through some of the basics before we get stuck into the geeky bit. Actually, fair warning, this may all be a geeky bit. So this whisky is a 9-year-old age statement. What that means is the minimum age of the whiskies that have gone into this is 9 years old. There may well be older whisky in here. And if you look down here at the fine print, you'll see it's also a single malt. Single meaning it's all come from one distillery, one geographic location, and malt meaning all the sugar has been taken from malted barley, rather than other cereals like grain or a blend thereof. So single malt, one distillery, all barley. Simple enough. And this whisky is presented to us at 46% ABV. Now 40% is the minimum for a whisky, but 46 means that we get that extra bit of delivery of flavours. It's a good thing. Now I have no idea what House Lannister are up to at the moment. Probably mostly dead, I imagine, but I do know Lagavulin. They're probably one of the most established distilleries and single malt whisky brands going. They are really well known for their rounded, rich, peated flavour profile. Now I happen to love this style of whisky, the smoky whiskies, but it's not for everyone and it can be a little bit tough to get into for a newcomer. But I think Diageo have been fairly savvy to this and they've put together a set of whiskies which are friendlier. They're easier to enjoy for someone who hasn't yet embraced the peat. So they're trying to get people on board before they hit them with the really smoky stuff. So I keep mentioning this peat, but what on earth is it? Well, it's a little bit of a tale of serendipity really. This little island off the west coast of Scotland is fairly barren. It doesn't have trees or any other fuel source readily available. So they dig up this densely packed mat of vegetal decomposing matter, and it's really calorie rich, so it actually burns quite well. It doesn't burn particularly hot, but it creates a lot of smoke. And this peat is then used to stop the germination of the malt once it's begun to release those sugars, to stop the plant from continuing to grow, so that we can then steal the sugars to make alcohol with. So if you consider all of the masses of variables that could go into the production of this peat compound, the earth and the vegetation that was growing on it, the animals that were grazing on it, living off it, the compounds, the sea spray that was being carried in on the wind, whether it had ever been flooded, all of these different things leave a different residue on the peat. And when that peat is burnt off, the smoke carries all these flavours. And so you get a very different style of smoke, a different type of peat flavour coming through. And that's why on the island of Islay you have 9 distilleries now, and each one tastes different. Lagavulin itself is sandwiched between Ardbeg and Laphroaig, and those 2 distilleries are about 2 miles apart. So within the space of about 2 miles you have 3 different distilleries, and each one has a very distinct flavour profile, a different character. But enough of that geeky talk, let's actually get in and appreciate this whisky. Now the first thing I want to look at is the colour, and I'm putting this down as a shade 11 or Old Sauternes. Now next thing we're going to appreciate is the nose, the smell. And you can kind of see on the glass that I've got a little bit of condensate on the side. Now this is because I put the glass cap on it to help collect all those aromas, stop them escaping. So when I first take that off, the first sniff is going to be full of smells, it's going to be rich and give me some quite different flavours to when it begins to taper off and it breathes and those aromas escape. So let's see what that first smell is. So there's some quite sweet tones coming through initially. There's a caramel and this really smooth, rich but kind of creamy peat. It sounds odd, but it's really full and approachable. It's like bananas on a barbecue. As those aromas are allowed to escape from the glass and my nose begins to become acclimated to it, it's mellowing out on these sweet, kind of fruity, kind of vegetal tones. It's like mint leaves and bananas, blueberries, a bit of caramel and marshmallow, all layered over this lovely kind of ashy barbecue smell. There's also quite a nice honeyed barley and kind of green malt tone. Now if you look at the shape of this glass, this is called a nosing copita. There are hundreds of different styles of glasses that you could choose to drink your whiskey from, but this is my favourite, and I implore you to find one that does have this tapered profile so that it can help you to actually concentrate and appreciate the nose, to really pick out those dense flavour compounds. Now another one that I have in my geeky arsenal is this little thistle shaped glass. And this really brings out some very different tones to the whiskey, and it can help to emphasise sometimes the smokier side of things, sometimes the underlying sweeter tones. It helps you to find things that you wouldn't necessarily get otherwise, but then when you're looking for them, you begin to appreciate them. So let's see if I get anything different on this one. This is much more recluse, it's not giving away as much, but what it does give is quite dense marshmallow and kind of a mossy tone. Still a lot of the same DNA is there, but it's really emphasising that mossy peat and a sweet, almost barbecued marshmallow. I would say it's better out of the nosing copita though. Have a quick cleanse of the palate, and then let's go and try tasting it. It's got a wealth of flavour on the palate. Initially it's that unripened banana, it's quite sort of herbaceous, a little bit green, and then this ashy smoke begins to develop. A nice warming prickle, some spiky spices, and then a woody tone comes in, and it gets not quite bitter but full. It's really quite warming. The second sip is exposing more of that bourbon cask influence, the caramel, the vanilla. There's a little bit of like a tobacco leaf. Still kind of herbaceous, kind of green. Now I have tried adding a touch of water to this in the past, and I found it really squashed a lot of the flavours. The whiskey became quite flat. So I won't be doing it now, but give it a try yourself if you fancy it. And just as you get towards the bottom of the glass, put a couple of drops of water in and see if it gives you anything different. It's those woody flavours that carry through really nicely into the finish. Charred oak, you know, where the cask has been recharred. There's still plenty of that warming, a little bit of a solventy prickle, kind of ashy as well. And that is the woody, ashy, burnt flavour is probably what lingers with you and stays through into the finish. So the first couple of times that I drank this whiskey, the first couple of drams were a little bit cloistered up. They weren't really releasing their flavours, and I was struggling to settle into it. But the past 5 or 6 drams, it's really become a consistent character, and really quite an appreciable character. So I've got a stack of little tasting notes here where I've sat with it and tried to appreciate it, and they've ranged everywhere from a 56 out of 100 to today. And today, I think I'm going to give it a 75 out of 100. It's really very accessible, very nice and easy to drink. It's not quite boring, but it is a little simple. I think other Lagavulin offerings have a great deal more complexity and richness to them, but that's kind of missing the point of what this whiskey is for. It isn't necessarily for people like me. It's more for the Game of Thrones fans to try and get them to appreciate the world of whiskey, and hopefully from here take it as a stepping stone to buy another Lagavulin, something that they want to explore more. So I implore you, if you've got a bottle like this and you're watching this video, you must have some interest in cracking it open. Give it a try. It's there for enjoying. It's already a tad overpriced for what it is. Whether that goes up in price is yet to be seen, but whiskey is excellent for making memories with, so crack it open, share it with loved ones, rewatch some of your favourite Game of Thrones moments, but appreciate the whiskey. And if you find yourself really settling well with the smoky tones and that Lagavulin peated characteristic, then try stepping up to something like the 16-year-old, because that will open a whole new world to you. So cheers for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please chuck a like and a comment below. Consider subscribing. Take a look at my other videos for a deeper delve on the whiskey world. Sláinte.